I'm John Murray. I'm the Senior Vice President of Sales here at GlobalSign. I started with GlobalSign back in 2007. We're in the managed PKI space, providing certificate and trust services for all size companies across the globe. The industry has been evolving rapidly over the last couple of years. Certificates, when I first started in the business, certificates were upwards of 10 years in length. Originally, we used to provide 5-year certificates, got pushed down to 3, down to 2, and currently we're at 1 year. Last year, though, there was a major announcement from the industry where they were going to be moving certificate validity periods down to eventually 47 days. So this year, coming up this month, we go to 200 days, and then next year to 100 days, and then in 2029 down to 47 days. If you just do the simple math, the velocity of the replacement of certificates is going to be exponential. So if you just think of going from a 1 year to 200 days, that's going to be double your velocity. And it's going to be, 4x up to 8 to 10x when you get to the 47 days. So that creates a huge problem for a lot of enterprises where they've, not been able to manage these things. And now they're going to have to rotate these things at a much higher pace. There are some large organizations that are still struggling, but I really think the small to medium-sized enterprises have been the segment of the market that's been a little left behind. They have smaller teams. They may not be as well-informed. You have more generalists working in those companies that handle lots of areas of security. So I think it's, the small to medium-sized enterprises, I think, are the most exposed and challenged to look for solutions. Doing these manually with spreadsheets and even using the tools, native tools that are in a lot of the managed PKI environments, it's just not going to cut it anymore. You're going to have some sort of a certificate lifecycle management tool in order to help you rotate these. Even small companies that might have 10, 20, 30 certificates, with small teams, they're going to have to find ways to do that. The first thing, is discovery, right? You need to know what you have. CLMs often have, like our tools, have discovery, which allows you to go out and find your entire inventory of certificates. Then, from there, you want to know where do those live, what tech stack, what kind of ecosystems that live on, how are you going to be able to automate that, right? Because different endpoints with different technologies might require different approaches. Good certificate management, having that CLM tool, being able to understand what you have, being able to automate those endpoints, having them automatically rotate out is really critical. A small outage of a certificate could cost you a lot of money if it's, if you're not keeping on top of it. So really that discovery, understanding where it is, understanding how you can automate those endpoints is really critical to building a, resilient environment. With the right tools, right, you can, it's set it and forget it, where you can set up the automation and then you don't have to worry about it. Your certificates are going to automatically rotate out. You may still have, there's some endpoints, some things, given the technologies that may exist, might require some manual intervention, but you want to eliminate that as much as possible. And there are technologies that can, different technologies and approaches that you can take to touch most any endpoint that you might have. So really that automation, discovery, process of a CLM is really going to help you with managing that problem. Again, as we look at going from 200 days to 47, that's going to be a huge lift for companies, and it comes fast and furious. So, one of the other challenges that I don't think people really understand is, there's the commercial side. There's two things. There's the technical rotation of certificates and getting that all set up. But then there's having the back end systems that support this new world order, right, of constantly rotating certificates out. So years ago, we came up with a licensing schema which works on a different dimension than most CAs. It uses the unique, fully qualified domain name values as the way to license. So you don't pay for duplicates. It's very simple. And the beauty of that is it's an annual contract and you can rotate certificates at whatever pace you need. You're just replacing them. It doesn't, take up more slots in your license. It allows for that constant rotation, whether it's 200 days or 47 days. That type of licensing schema makes it really simple and transparent for the enterprise and us as your partner. Dimensionally, it's just simpler, so it's easy for IT teams to understand exactly where they stand. If they need to increase their license, if they're, acquiring other companies, this is a common thing that you see happening. Companies acquire other companies, they acquire domains, they acquire certificate inventories, and they have to add to their license. The flexibility of SAN license is I can add more SANs to my account at any time. It's prorated. You're not paying extra for adding. You can change your license year to year if you so choose. So it's extremely flexible, very transparent, and just, easy for anybody to use, whether you're a large company or a small company. The traditional way people would buy certificates a lot of times is they would, buy a pack of certificates, they would use them up, they'd buy another pack. With a SAN license, because it works on a year dimension and it's working on a different dimensional model of the unique FQDNs, when you're rotating that certificate, you're just replacing the same cert with the same certificate again. It doesn't take up any more licensing. Our system doesn't care. You can just keep rotating that certificate. If you wanted to do it every day, you could rotate that cert every day, and SAN licensing would allow you to do that. It'll be an endless kind of road for people that are using that kind of methodology. It's super transparent. It takes the guesswork out of, predicting what you're going to need and preparing for the future as, acquisitions or other things happen where you may have to acquire more certificates to cover your infrastructure. The important questions is what tools does the vendor have? How can they help me with automating, right? You're going to need to automate. That's a reality that we're all going to be facing. So what kind of tools does the vendor have? Do they have tools that are appropriate for my size of business? And can they take me through the life cycle of my, if my business is growing and I have other needs? Is the technology expandable, adaptable, right? One of the things that GlobalSign has done is we have integrations to a lot of other tools that are not ours. So there are other CLM systems, third-party CLM systems. So we have integration points into a lot of those products. So it's a question. I think you're really looking for a vendor that can provide you the technical flexibility to manage, your particular tech stack that you have, the different endpoints that you have, and being able to cover those endpoints and automate those endpoints. I mean, you really need some sort of discovery tool. I mean, there's other things looming in the industry too. A lot of times the other kind of elephant in the room is post-quantum, right? Everybody's talking about quantum cryptography, and the path to, preparing for quantum and preparing for this shortened life cycle is knowing what you have and what endpoints those exist on. It's the same kind of process that you're going to need to have to address post-quantum. And then post-quantum, you're going to be able to use your CLM technology that you've put in place to help you rotate your RSA certificates out for your quantum resistant certificates when that comes to fruition in the industry. Today, we're talking about, like I said, the big elephant in the room, the, deprecation of validity periods. But I think, I look at my team and the team that I work with and my colleagues, the average experience of the team is 8 to 10 years. So, I think it's working with somebody who has experience, works more in a solution fashion, more of a consultative way. That's the GlobalSign process, is that we're very consultative. We can help companies, set a plan to move forward and to address these issues.